Dricus Du Plessis versus Israel Adesanya is a fight that is rumoured and is not confirmed at all, but it is rumoured to be taking place in August in Australia, in Perth at UFC 305. And honestly, it's really got me thinking about the fight now that I've kind of seen it officially laid out here on Tapology. I've read about quite a few people's opinions on the fight, and one thing I've noticed is a lot of people seem to be on the Dricus Du Plessis side. As you can see here, 60% of people are picking Du Plessis out of only 200 votes, and 40% are picking Israel Adesanya. So I really wanted to know, what is your guys' opinions on this fight? Let me know in the comments below, because I'll be honest, as soon as Dricus Du Plessis defeated Sean Strickland, I thought in my head, it's actually a really easy stylistic matchup for Israel Adesanya, and I feel like on the feet, it is, because I do believe in the striking. Israel Adesanya is a significantly better striker than Dricus Du Plessis, and I know a lot of people are going to want to counter that with Sean Strickland beat up Adesanya on the feet. Dricus Du Plessis beat Sean Strickland on the feet. I can kind of see the argument, because one thing that we have seen, I guess, from only a small sample is that Adesanya doesn't like being pressured backwards, and that's what Dricus Du Plessis does. He pressures you forwards all the time, and that's also what Alex Pereira does as well, and he found a lot of success against Israel Adesanya in the striking with his pressure forward style as well. But I still do maintain that I think that Israel Adesanya is a significantly better striker, especially technically, than Dricus Du Plessis. But one massive X factor that Dricus Du Plessis will be bringing into this matchup is actually the fact that he has very good fight IQ, and he will shoot for takedowns if and when he needs to. And I feel like if he actually come into a matchup against Israel Adesanya and his game plan was to wrestle, I think he could beat Adesanya more times than not if that was the case. And that's really how the fight gets interesting for me, because I do believe that Adesanya is a significantly better striker, but Du Plessis does have that X factor. Another thing you can say is Adesanya has defended takedowns incredibly well in the past, and he has. That is true. He has taken on a lot of guys that have wanted to take him down, and he has defended their takedowns. I mean, he fought Robert Whittaker, but Whittaker was able to have success with the wrestling. Vittori was trying to take him down, and that's a game plan that I believe Dricus Du Plessis might be able to employ, is what Marvin Vittori was trying to do to Adesanya and have more success with it. He was out-wrestled by Blachowicz, upper weight class, but before that, he took on Brunson, who's a wrestler, Anderson Silva, who did mostly strike with him, to be fair, and a bunch of other guys that would be willing to wrestle, or were willing to wrestle, with Israel Adesanya. But I look into it, and the fight with Sean Strickland, I am going to put it out there, I picked Sean Strickland to win. At the time, I thought it was incredibly close, but I was thinking that Dricus Du Plessis won the fight, and I still think it's super, super razor close. But I think Du Plessis stole the fight from Strickland for one pretty simple reason, and that's the fact that he was getting takedowns on Sean Strickland, and Strickland wasn't wrestling Du Plessis. On the feet, yes, Strickland did land more strikes, and a lot of people are pointing to that. And Du Plessis, although he got 6 takedowns against Strickland, only got like 3 minutes of control time, which is honestly pretty much nothing in a 25-minute fight, especially with all of those takedowns. But I think Du Plessis was smart with it, like a round would be dead even on the feet, and then there'd be 1 minute or 45 seconds left in the fight, in the round, I should say, and Dricus Du Plessis would shoot a takedown, and he would get it on Strickland. And I was kind of thinking as the fight was going on, I was like, Strickland, why don't you shoot for a takedown and do the same thing as Dricus Du Plessis? There's 1 minute left in the round. It's dead even. Strickland does have wrestling. We just don't see it anymore. And I feel like Strickland lost that fight, and Du Plessis won it in a way by just having the better fight IQ. And the way that I do word it, and this is not in a negative way, I kind of mean it in a positive way, is he stole rounds off Sean Strickland in that matchup. And I feel like if he's fighting Israel Adesanya, and the striking is competitive, I feel like it would be a case of Adesanya landing more, but not landing the more damaging strikes. I feel like Dricus Du Plessis would land significantly less strikes on Adesanya, because Adesanya is very defensively sound. He's a good mover. He's going to see a lot of what Dricus Du Plessis does throw, because he does leave himself very wide open. He does kind of throw, in my opinion, with not the best technique, but it's effective because it is powerful, and it did work against Strickland. He's going to land less than Izzy, but he's going to land the harder shots. And that can be hard to judge. You see someone that lands 30 strikes and someone's landed 15 strikes, and you've got to decide which of those fighters that landed the strikes did more damage, and it can be kind of hard to decipher. And I actually feel like the Du Plessis versus Strickland fight is a pretty good example of that. So in this matchup, I think Dricus Du Plessis is going to have to employ takedowns in this matchup. I do believe Izzy is going to land more. I think he is the better striker. But Dricus Du Plessis, with a minute left on the clock, it's relatively even. Or maybe even then, there's 90 seconds left on the clock, and Du Plessis knows that he's going to be down on the strike. So with 90 seconds left, he gets a takedown, and then he lands some really good ground and pound, or he goes for a submission, or he just controls in dominant position, but he does something with it by landing a few strikes. He might steal rounds off Izzy and then lead to a decision. I'm seeing a lot of people potentially have Du Plessis by submission because Dricus Du Plessis, although he's a former K1 kickboxer, I did say this when he was making his big come up, he's actually a really good grappler, and he started out as his MMA career with a lot of submissions. He was submitting a lot of guys on the regional scene. It hasn't translated as much to the UFC. He hasn't been getting that many submission wins. I mean, he did submit Darren Till. I believe he submitted someone earlier on in his career, Brendan Lisa, that was not even in the UFC though. But Adesanya, when he took on Marvin Vettori, I know that he won the fight, I think like 50-45, somewhat unanimously. If you do look at the stats for this fight, it is somewhat close. Now, Adesanya wins the fight, obviously. He did control the fight the entire time, but you can't forget the fact that Vettori was finding success with his wrestling. The fact that Vettori did find the back of Adesanya at one point in that matchup as well, and was able to have moments there on the ground. It obviously wasn't enough to end up taking the fight. Adesanya was piecing him up on the feet because Vettori is not a very good striker, but he still had his own success by moving forward, pressuring and pushing Izzy back, and I feel like this is a very good fight for Dricus Du Plessis to watch and see what he needs to do. I understand he probably could watch the Strickland fight as well and think, okay, if you back him up and you put him on the fence, he's not going to like it, and he doesn't like it. Alex Pereira did that to him as well. He doesn't like being put on the fence. Jared Cannonier had his own success, kind of. Whitaker had his own success, and I feel like maybe Dricus Du Plessis is going to be the guy that's going to go out there and shoot for takedowns against Israel Adesanya and land against Israel Adesanya and the cage. And that's another thing as well about Israel Adesanya. Although the fight is in Australia, and it's not really home territory for him because he does train in New Zealand, he's recently been making remarks about the Australian fans, and I was in the arena when this fight happened, so I can actually tell you what happened. And Adesanya, he was booed at the press conference a lot, but he was saying that he was getting booed during the fight, and then he was getting booed in the walkout. He was not booed in the walkout. There were boos, but I would say the majority of the crowd that was making noise, it was a dead crowd, by the way, at UFC 298, was it? The event that I went to, maybe 289, something like that. UFC 293, okay, it wasn't even close, but I was at this event, trust me. I was there. The crowd was dead, to start with. And even then, they weren't booing like Israel Adesanya is making out the Sydney crowd to be. And then they said that the Sydney crowd was racist for booing him and all this sort of stuff. But I feel like Israel Adesanya just kind of needs to understand that he doesn't actually have a very likable personality whatsoever. And this was the period of time where Israel Adesanya was getting exposed for the horrific stuff that he may or may not be allegedly doing with his dog, and then the video that has surfaced of what he filmed and posted himself of him doing to his dog. So yeah, a lot of people in the crowd were running with that, I guess, at the press conference, but once again in the fight, he wasn't really getting booed. So maybe because he's made those comments about Australian fans, he's gonna get that same response again. And another thing I'm going to end off the video with is I do kind of feel like this is a missed opportunity to have the fight in South Africa or Nigeria or just somewhere else in Africa. I know the UFC had a lot of interest in actually putting on an event in Africa, and there is a bunch of different countries that they're looking at, and a few of the countries that they're looking at was kind of a little bit of a surprise, and not a country that you would expect them to, but unfortunately, I think Angola was one of them, and there was another one as well. But South Africa, Angola, Nigeria, and something else. The point is, the UFC wanted to go to Africa. I feel like this is a fight they could do it at. I mean, apparently Dricus Du Plessis is a massive star in South Africa. But to give a pick at the end of the video, early lean, very early lean. Adesanya's not getting any younger, is he? He's 35 years old. He's watching all of his mates lose. He's making excuses. He's claiming injuries. He's claiming having a incurable disease. Oh, I do think Izzy's the better fighter. I really do. Like, no disrespect to Dricus Du Plessis. I know a lot of people love Du Plessis. I'm just saying how I feel it is, because I don't think he's a very technical striker. Du Plessis might get cheered, and Izzy might get booed, which could play a big part. I think Izzy is too good, though, man. That's kind of how I see it. I think he's just too good at striking to lose to Dricus. But Dricus, if he does go out there and he wrestles, he's going to find a lot of success against Izzy. But my early lean is Israel Adesanya with extremely low confidence. That was my initial feeling that I had. I'm going to stick with the initial feeling for now. My pick definitely could change, of course. I mean, the event is potentially going to be like, what, is that 4 months away? It's a long way away. My pick could change, but at the moment, I do still kind of believe in Israel Adesanya. I'm definitely not a fan of Adesanya, but I do think that he does have a pretty good style to match up with Du Plessis. But even then, you could say that Du Plessis is the perfect style to match up with Adesanya, because Adesanya doesn't like being pushed backwards. He can get taken down, even though he's got good takedown defense. Whitaker was still able to find success in the grappling. Vettori was. Sean Strickland pressured him, had a lot of success. Alex Pereira had his own success pressuring up against the cage. I'm going to side with Izzy for now, but definitely let me know what you think in the comments. I think this is actually a very incredibly difficult, hard fight to predict, and I think a lot of people are going to be very confident on one side or the other. I don't think this is one of those fights. This isn't Alex Pereira versus Jamal Hill, where, in my opinion, I was very confident in Alex Pereira the whole time, and so many people were on Hill. This isn't that. This is a fight which I believe is pretty split down the middle. Seems like the fans are pretty split down the middle as well. I don't think Adesanya can knock out Dricus Du Plessis. Dricus Du Plessis seems like a pretty tough guy. Israel Adesanya, he knocked out Alex Pereira, but that was like with 125% of his power. He hasn't really finished anybody in a long time. Like, when was the last time he finished someone? Was it Calvin Gastelum before he finished Alex? Robert Whitaker. He knocked out Robert Whitaker in 2019. Dude, he would have been like 31 years old then. He's 35 now. 30 years old. Oh my god. It's a long time ago. When did he knock out Calvin Gastelum? Oh, he didn't knock out Calvin Gastelum. Okay. He knocks down Gastelum like 3 times though. I'm going to leave the video there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I really am interested in hearing what other people have to say, but hopefully that was a pretty decent breakdown to talk about what the fight could be. And I'll see you guys in the next one.